what you should see in front of you now is just the result of this Mentimeter that you had to complete, where I just ask you about the 4 C's of 21st century thinking. So I don't know if you've necessarily heard of this theory, but when we talk about the 4 C's of 21st century thinking, we're talking about a different way of work, a new way that we are doing things in the modern world. And the 4 C's in a way is a way of looking at combining some of the most important new skills that people have had to acquire in because of various things. And a lot of what's happened, a lot of what we've been talking about, the 21st century thinking, and we've been in the 21st century for a while now, but last year just accelerated this whole process significantly when we look at the 4 C's. Now, what I find quite interesting is the kind of balance that we have here. And the question that I pose to you, which of the 4 C's of 21st century thinking would you rate as the most important, is actually a very unfair question, because neither one of them really is more important than the other one. The key lies in the interaction between these 4 skills and how we can combine these 4 skills moving forward. So asking which one is the most important, I wouldn't necessarily say is a fair question, but it's interesting to sometimes sit back and think about it, because very often when we look at the one that's most important, one of 2 things is going to happen. We are either going to ask ourselves, which is the one that I feel I'm strongest in, and which is the one that I feel, I suppose, weakest in. And very often the one that we feel strongest in is the one that we'd like to put forward, or oftentimes it's the one that we struggle with. Now, it's great to see there's a lot of us that talk about collaboration and communication, because there's a lot of focus on critical thinking and creativity and how we can improve these things. But today's session, when we talk about teams, we're really going to talk about how we can move teams beyond just what we've been doing so far. So in the first session, we looked specifically at Teams as a communication platform and moving beyond this concept that Teams is simply a tool we use for webinars, and starting to realize that there's a lot more to Teams when it comes to communication. Now, today we want to take it to the next step, and we want to start exploring that concept. We're going to really delve into the collaboration and communication that you can achieve. So we're not so much focused on creativity and critical thinking today. However, I think sometimes being able to collaborate and communicate effectively requires both creativity and critical thinking. So we might look at a couple of creative approaches. Now, before we actually get to Teams, I'm just going to pose one more question to you. So you can just go to your Mentimeter and see how you can answer this question on your side, and just see how would you rate your 4 C's when you have to, when you look at these different things. What would you say would be your greatest strengths, I suppose? And please don't give yourself 5 out of 5 for everything. That would kind of defeat the purpose. So let's see how you rate yourself. And remember, this is entirely anonymous, so no one's going to see what you actually say. Let's see where we lie. I see there's 2 people that have answered. Remember, if you close the Mentimeter, you can go in the chat. I see there's some more people popping in with their answers. It's great to see that we have some honest introspection going on. It doesn't look like people are giving themselves 5s really. But what's interesting so far, if I look at what we are getting, there seems to be a bit of a lower kind of rating when it comes to collaboration. Critical thinking, we'd like to think that we are good at quite often. Creativity, I think many people who are creative don't consider themselves as being creative. So it's not surprising that that one isn't so high. I'm just going to give you another minute or 2 to try and complete this. But we're getting a nice balance, it seems, between the 4 C's of 21st century thinking, the skills that we need to really thrive and be successful. Right, it seems to really have settled kind of on the 3.5, 3.4, 3.4, 3.2. Collaboration still just a little bit lower than the others, but not by that much. Right, so I see Yaroslav is saying not very high all around though. I think very often people tend to, when they're supposed to rate themselves in a public forum, like to not necessarily give themselves the highest possible rating. So maybe that could be have something to do with it. But anyway, let's dive into Teams specifically and see what it is, how Teams can help us with collaboration and communication specifically. So what we're going to start off with, the first and the most important aspect of Teams that I think is hugely underutilized is just basic file management and what file management actually entails. We are, all of us, not all of us, but many of us are used to running to other platforms. Something like a Google Drive is sometimes a simpler kind of file system to use. But what we want to look at today, whichever file system you're going to use, whichever cloud-based thing that you're going to use, or storage thing that you're going to use, we really want to look at cloud-based, because the cloud is one of the key elements that we can use in terms of cultivating communication and collaboration. So when we get to files and sharing files in Teams, it's actually interesting to see just how easy it is to organize the kind of file sharing that you want to do. And in a way, this is an incredibly valuable added bonus that you can have when using it in this way. So first and foremost, what we want to do is I'm going to look at the different ways that we can look at files. So I'm not really going to go into this files section yet that we see over there. We'll get to that in a minute. But we want to start off by what we actually do in a team. So I'm going to go to this team that I've got there, MS Teams example team. And we'll get to that channel in a minute. But every team that you have has multiple channels, and every channel by default has this little thing here at the top called files. Now, some of them might have Workbook, some of them have other things depending on the team that you've created, but all of them have this tab called files. So if I click on files and I open it up here, you'll see this is a team that we used to use. So there is one file in there, and you'll see that Gilbert was the one that put it in there. But that's it. That's all that we've got in this file section at the moment. But it becomes very easy for us to add files in here, and specifically with the purpose of making it a collaborative file. So first thing I'm going to create here, just to show you how straightforward it is to do this, is we're going to go and we're going to create a new Excel workbook. And because we are working in an office environment, it automatically gives us all of these, all of the different Office files that we can create. So you've got Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and Forms for Excel. So you've got all these different type of files that you can use to and create it immediately in this space. Now, the great thing is if I create it in this space where I am now, everyone who's part of my team has access to the file. And specifically, they've got access to the file with editing rights. So they can actually make changes to the files and do things to the files that they need to do, depending on where you're going to create it. So keep that in mind. When we get to the channels a little bit later, you'll understand why this is such an important thing to keep in mind. Because when we're creating files in here, and you can change the file settings once they've been created, they are automatically accessible and editable for the people in this group. So you can also keep your things organized by creating a folder. So there I've just gone, let me show you how we do that. If we go to new and folder, we can create a folder. So this is a new folder. We'll just call it new folder, and we'll create it. And there we go. There's my new folder containing various things. Now you'll see from here, the navigation is quite intuitive. you've got your general, and then you've got your new folder. When we go all the way back to documents, documents is essentially going to be just kind of the files that I have received already in the past, right? So let's just go back to the files. So here we go. So documents is not what we're looking at. Documents is not, just to so that you all understand that, documents is not actually part of the files that are shared in this team. Right, so we've got a folder that we can keep things organized with. But if you don't want to go and recreate everything on Teams, because that will take an eternity, you can also upload things from that are already on your desktop. You can upload a file, you can upload a folder, whichever way you want to go. And everyone who is part of this team can actually add content to the team. Now, here's another important thing. Last time we spoke about the difference between the members of a team and the guests on a team. A guest access does not allow you to add files. It allows you to open them and view them, but you can't add files. So just keep that in mind when we're talking about the guests. So we are specifically talking, because I know if I look at the group that we've got here, we've got a number of district officials that are here, and we've got a number of school staff that are also in this training. So things work a little bit differently in between the two groups. I'm going to focus more on how it works in the school environment, but I'll also make mention of what it works like in a in the district official environment. So keep in mind, if you are a district official and you're creating a group, you're creating a team, and you're adding files on there, and you expect your teachers to upload files there, they will not be able to do that necessarily. They won't have access they won't have the ability to load files into the team because guests don't have that kind of permission. So keep that in mind. It's an important distinction to make. But we're going to look at a clever way when we get to the tabs as well. So here I've got my folders. I've got my one folder. Let me just show you how we upload. So I'm just going to first upload a file. Let's go to upload files. It's just going to quickly load my files. Let's just upload a small file, right? So there's a file that we're going to upload. Just give it a few minutes to upload. So while that's uploading, I can do the same thing here with a folder. I can add a folder. And remember, when you add a folder, everything else that's in that folder will also be uploaded. So automatically it creates the whole folder tree for you. So if you've got lots of subfolders, in folders, etc., and you add it that way, then suddenly all of that gets added in the same way. So I'm not going to add the folder necessarily. I think that file is still just uploading. My internet connectivity is a little bit spotty today, so please forgive that. Might take a while. And there I've got my file. But what I want to show you now is actually where I really think the power in this whole thing lies. So if I create, for example, a new document, and I create an Excel workbook. Now this is a practical example that really works quite nicely. And we call this our staff contact details, right? So there's the staff contact details. We are going to create that Excel file. Now, the way that Teams does these things, you'll see what happens is the frame is actually still there. So this is the outline of Teams, the frame. And in this block over here, it is creating the new file. So I never leave Teams. I stay in Teams and access files from it. So I can still quickly click on any of my other links over here and jump to it. If there's a chat that's happening and I need to get to that quickly, I can go to that quickly. But here I actually edit an Excel sheet inside of Teams. Now, if I do that, I know for a fact that this Excel sheet is an online one. It is a collaborative document, as opposed to what happens when we open an Excel sheet on our desktop. Then that is more than likely a local file. And I know you can share that file as well. There's a different way. That's the story for another day. But if you do it this way around, you know it is an online thing. So I quite like working on in the online environment And the Teams app that I've got open in front of me as well, this is actually the web app, not the desktop app, because I find the web app, in terms of working with the Office, with the Office 365 online tools, works actually a little bit better sometimes. And for me, the web app for Teams is great when it comes to that. When it comes to presentations, it's a different story. But yes, so this is just our staff contact details. So we'll start with just a simple number column, and then we're going to have name, surname, add cell phone, email, and address. Right, so here we add a number of different fields. We can make it a little bit bigger if we wanted to, etc. However we want to style our workbook, there we've got. So I'm just going to fill in my own, Jaco van der Kerk, 1, 2, 3. Right, so there's just my contact details, and address is home, just as an example. What's nice about this now, because I've got this as an online Excel file, anyone can access it on Teams, first and foremost. But more importantly, if something changes, if my email, my cell phone number is not 123 anymore, the instruction is not suddenly, I don't have to send the instruction somewhere. Very often we send the instruction to the secretary, for example. My contact details have changed, or we forget to say that. But here we go, and my cell phone number, I can go change it myself. And the nice thing is, when anyone else wants to open this, they get the up-to-date document. It's not an old list that is lying somewhere. Everyone gets gets an up-to-date document, which works incredibly well in terms of that whole process, right? As Jaroslav is pointing out there, what the whole point of this is, what we're trying to get away from, is this concept of everyone sending an email of an Excel document over and over and over again, a PDF document over and over and over again. This is something that, I mean, I think all of us are used to this. Every at the beginning, you get an email with a new staff list, and within 2 or 3 months, that list is outdated anyway. But there's no online list for you to refer back to. So this actually solves that problem in a very easy way, and it becomes a useful central place to get the content. Now, once I'm done with this, you'll notice, as if you've worked on the Google platform, because I think a lot of the times people get their first real experience of the cloud-based editing tools, I suppose, from the Google platform. There's no save button, because everything we do is automatically saved online. Once I click close, the file is there, and everyone can see there I've got the file. Now, one thing that you have to keep in mind is people are not going to magically know that your file is there. So here you'll see there's nothing happening there. So you will still have to say in a conversation, tell them about the file that you've actually got in there. Sorry, not there. So we can actually tell them, go look. Go look at the staff list under files. Please update your details. Right. So I'll have to still communicate it. And if you're in a school environment, what I can tell you now with absolute certainty is that message that I've sent there is still not nearly enough. You actually have to go to the person, or you actually still have to tell people things face to face. Otherwise, they'll simply not take note of what you're saying. This is a simple fact that happens all the time. We get too reliant sometimes on the technology, and then the communication falls flat. So there's lots of areas where it works incredibly well, but you still need to actually communicate these things to people. So there's an example of how we can create a staff list. But now what we can do with files goes well beyond just that. So you've noticed now, as I said in the team, here I've got my posts, I've got my files, and I can create folders, I can upload files, I can do all sorts of different things. Sorry, I was just wondering, where did that thing go now? So there's my actual Excel sheet document. Sorry, I don't want to open it now. but it just takes a little while sometimes because my internet is a little bit laggy. So the file is there. Don't worry, it'll appear in a minute or two once it's loaded again. Right. So what's great about files, though, is it's not limited to teams. What's happening here, that the tab that you see over there that calls itself files is now accessible to everyone in the general channel. Now, every single team that we create by default has a general channel, and everyone who is on the team is in that general channel. But if I go and I add another channel, so let's quickly see what the channels, what happens when we add channels. If I go on a team and I click on the 3 dots, it gives me the option to add a channel. Add a member, add a channel, leave the team, etc. So we looked at creating teams last time, but we didn't get to the channel specifically. If this is my example team that I've got over here, I want to add another channel, which I'm going to call queries, just as an example, right? So here I've got a channel called queries. I can now decide, once I've got this, I can add a description to the channel if I wanted to, but quite importantly, over here, there's the option to create a standard channel or a private channel. Now for the district officials, I'm not sure if this has been activated yet. I know this was a long debate whether or not we're going to have access to the private channels. Some people can create private channels, but you'll have to test that on your own. But if you're in the WCG schools domain, so for all our school-based educators or staff at least, you can create these private channels. So a school can create a school channel and have a private channel that let's say, for example, we're going to create this private channel. It's going to be called queries. We're going to say next. And now that we've created the channel, it asks me, who do I want to add to the channel? Now, please note, you cannot add, let's say I want to add an external person. Now I can add this guest to the channel because this account of mine is already a member of the group, but they first have to be added to a team in order to be able to join a channel. So you can't add someone to a channel and not add them to the team. You must first add people to a team and then you add them to the channels. I hope this makes sense. The team is one of those things that you can't just be part of a channel and not be part of a team. It doesn't work that way. So let's just add, I'm just going to add Harriet because she's also part of this team. So I'll add her to the queries channel and I'll make her, now I can decide, do I make her a member or an owner? So an owner has a couple of extra permissions. For the most part, we're going to add people as members to the channel, except if we really want to give them the kind of permission to become the owners of the channels and do all sorts of extra things there. But once you get to the point where you want to add people as an owner, I'm sure you would have explored teams in a little bit more detail already. So we just want to add it as a member. My advice is don't add people as owners unless you understand the implications of that actually. So we're going to add her as a member. Now you'll see when I open up my teams, let's just close that for a second. If I click there, there are 3 channels. The test arena is just another one that I was playing around with a little bit earlier. I've got a general channel and I've got a queries channel. Right. Let me just quickly see someone's asking for the attendance register. There you go. Right. So when we've got a queries, when we've got a channel, a hidden channel like this, the private channel at least, if I click on files, it's an entirely different set of files. So things that are over here, it's not the same files as we'll get in the general files. And importantly, the only other person who will see this files, the files that are here, is Harriet, because she's the only other member of this channel. So I'm just going to pause this and explain that again, because it's important to really wrap your head around this concept of the team and the channel. So the team is always, and this general channel is always the one channel where everything is going, everyone is part of this. So you can't take the general channel away. It is there by default. Everyone who joins your team is automatically part of the general channel. From there on, you can create multiple different channels and basically move people around to the channels as you see it necessary. For example, you can have a channel for in a school environment now. You can have a channel for the finances where you only add your financial officers. You can add a channel for your HODs. You can add a channel for your SMT. You can add a channel for the various groups that you need to communicate with. And then when everyone needs to be communicated with, you use the general channel, or when you have specific groups, you use the private channels, for example. Now that I've got my queries channel, and let's say, for example, we want to send a message to multiple channels. So I actually want to post, and in this instance, it doesn't really make sense. Right, so as Yaroslav is pointing out, you can have your different subject departments that can meet, they can keep minutes, evidence of moderation, etc. All of those things, again, it's a centralized place where you can keep your files and keep your content so that everyone knows where all of those things actually are. If you've got channels as well, what's also useful is if you know that everyone that needs to meet is in that channel, you've always got the option to jump straight into a meeting where you don't schedule one through the calendar. But as we pointed out last time, if you need to have a meeting with multiple people, and you're not sure if they're all in one channel, it makes sense to create it through calendar. But if you actually just want to have a meeting, let's say we've got everyone that we want to meet with is in the queries channel. We all tell each other, look, at 3 o'clock we're going to have a meeting, and then we just jump into a meeting, and it's as easy as that. No one needs to set anything up. You just jump straight into that. So it's a good way of grouping your contacts in teams. And again, you've got this files tab automatically where you add your content. Yes, the calendar thing is a little bit more tricky. You can add calendars, and we're going to get to those tabs later, where it's a little bit different though. Right, so in this instance, it doesn't quite make sense, but I'm going to show you how we can do that anyway. Let's say we want to send a message to multiple channels, right? So I'm going to say new message, and now we click on our expand our message. And last time we spoke about how we actually kind of style this thing and make it look a little bit nicer. But then there's also a useful little button here that says post in multiple channels. So by default, I'm in the queries channel now, so it's going to post to the queries channel. But I can also add channels to that. So you don't have to go and copy and paste your message, right? So let's just say I want to post it to the general channel and to the test arena channel. So for example, if you've got a channel for your HODs and you've got a channel for your finances, and there's a message that you actually want to send to both those channels, you can just select that. Remember, if it's a message that's sent to everyone, just send it on the general channel. That makes the most sense. But for this example, we're going to send it to all these channels, and we're just going to say hi, and we'll say hi, and I'm going to send it. Now, an important distinction to make, what you have to understand is if I go to the general channel now, so you'll see there, I've got my message. That little sign over there indicates it's been sent to multiple channels. And I'm going to say this is the general channel. Here we go. Please note that this response happens only in the general channel. If I go there, there's no response. So what that means is I've sent the same basic message, but the conversation that I'm going to have and start in the 3 different channels happens in 3 different ways, which is quite a useful thing that you can do. Another I think a very useful trick that you can use once you start really wrapping your head around how one does this is if we click on a channel, you can actually go here to the get email address, right? So if we click here, please note those of you that are on the channel, if in the chat, I have shared the attendance register. I shared it just a little while ago. Harriet, if you don't mind just copying and pasting that again for the attendees that they can get that. Thank you. So each channel actually has its own kind of email address in a way, which I think is a very useful thing once you start thinking about how we can use this. So, for example, I'm going to say get email address here. Once I say get email address, it gives me this whole long email address. Queries, MS Teams, example team, blah, blah, blah. All that I'm really interested in is this email address. So if you think about it, the application of what we're talking about here, and that's why I created this queries channel, I can create, I can use this email address. Now I'm just going to send a dummy email to myself quickly. Just give me a second to do that. But what you can do actually now is you could technically go and create a auto forwarding thing. So let's say you've got an email, an email address at your school, sport@school.co.za, and multiple people might want to see the messages, but you've only got the one inbox, and now people need to go and forward it to this one and that one and this one and that one. So you actually can set your thing up to respond, to send an email straight to Teams. So I'm just going to send this email. There we go. So now it's going to take a little minute or two just to find its way to the team. But copy the thing correctly. But anyway, what's going to happen is the email is going to appear in the team, but it's not actually going to be the same as a normal email in the sense that you're going to reply to that email. This is a spot where you can have a conversation about an email. So that's why I created this little queries channel. I can add a number of different people to the queries channel. And what happens now is if people have queries, it goes to a central place where everyone can see the communication that's happening. And then based on the type of query, they can choose how they can sensibly respond to it, right? It's taking a little while to get through now. We'll check back a little bit later. Maybe it's routing a bit slowly. Or maybe let me just double check that I copied that email address correctly, because I think it's taking the whole long thing. Right, let's try that again. Okay. So in that way, you can actually quite cleverly create that communication. And part of this, of course, you've got your files tab where you can add multiple files that you can use for that relate to this whole process that we have got there. Okay, right. So over there, looks like I copied it the wrong way around first time round. So what you'll see at the top is it gives you the email address from which it was sent, and then it gives you the email as it was actually sent, right? So I can, if I need to respond to this email, what's great now is if you've got 3 or 4 people in the same channel, you can start with a conversation. But very importantly, what it does here is you don't reply to the email. And that's an important distinction to make because it's quite easy to think, but I've replied to the email through Teams without actually doing it. So in this instance, what we're doing here is we are replying to the message so that we can have a conversation about this message. I don't want to sign up. Don't know why that happened. So I hope you can see and understand the value in that. So what you could technically do if you really want to go quite far with this thing is you could set up a Google form as an example and have that form automatically send an email to this email inbox, and then people fill out a form, send whatever information is on that form straight to the team, and from there you can discuss what's happening. Just to give you some idea of how we can integrate our communication to make it more effective. Right. So the other thing I want to show you with the files, because we're not quite done with the files, what actually works quite well, and this is something that unfortunately, I don't know why it wants to sign me out all the time. Why, unfortunately, we do not have access to it at the moment in the district office, but WCG Schools account does have access to it. We can add cloud storage, so you can actually add Dropbox if anyone uses that. I know it's not something that's used very often, but quite importantly, Google Drive and Dropbox are two very popular cloud-based storage tools that people have been using for a long time now. And you can actually add your Google Drive folders straight into Teams as well. So there it immediately opens up my Google Drive, and I can add the various folders to Google Drive. Now you'll see a lot of things have been grayed out here, because these things are not necessarily files that we can add. We're adding, and we're not adding files. We want to add folders in this instance to the Files tab. What you can actually also do is if you go to Files, there you'll see there I've got all my recent content, all the files that I'm kind of working on recently. I don't know why it wants to sign me out all the time. But you can actually also here at the bottom add cloud storage, and there you can add Google Drive. So once you've added your Google Drive, it's going to open it up. It actually asks permission, etc., etc. I've already given it permission. I just wanted to remove it first, and from there I can access my various files. Now, in my experience, it's a little bit slow. It doesn't work nearly as quickly as we want it to work necessarily. But I'll show you how we get around that in a second. So with files as well, what's also very useful is if I go to my chats. So we had a look at how we create these individual chats last time. When I go here at the top and I create, let's see, I'm going to quickly just choose a random person in this meeting. Right, Anita is at the top. I'm going to use that as an example. I hope she's using a right. Not sure why it's wanting me to sign out the whole time, but okay. Let's just go to chat that I already have up and running. So this is just an example chat that I was kind of just testing out the interconnectivity between the two groups that we're working with. But every chat that I actually have has a files tab added there immediately. So any chat that I've got that I have with anyone, let me just quickly try and sign. Apologies for just this. Just give me a minute. You can go quickly grab some water or something. I just want to try and fix Right, I think we're almost back. Okay, let's hope it doesn't ask me to log out the whole time again. Okay, right. So, so here we are again. So if I go to a chat, just to show you quickly how this works, and I start a new chat, we're going to try again using the first person on the list, Anita Bateman. They have selected it. Right. So I want to start a new chat. This is a test. Right. So here I've sent Anita Bateman a message. Now, it looks like she's not online, so I think she's using a different account. So luckily, she is in this meeting, so she'll, I'm hoping, understand not to respond to these things. But if I've got this chat already, immediately it creates a new tab over here called Files. So if I need to share files between the two of us, it works very well in the sense that I can easily add files to this conversation. And again, files that I add here are automatically shared between the two of us with editing rights and with the necessary access that she needs. So this adds a lot of value to the actual chat that we have with someone, because this actually means that it becomes incredibly easy to share files, especially for that collaboration that we want to have. So that it adds to the communication aspect and to the collaboration aspect that we want, adding these tabs with the files. But sometimes we want to use a different platform like Google Drive, which for many people is just an easier cloud-based storage. So how do I actually add my Google Drive folders to Teams without doing it this way? And what I'm going to show you now works 100% well for works incredibly well for our district officials as well. And that is when we start adding tabs. But the first thing I want to show you when we look at these tabs is not necessarily how to add Google Drive, but just some of the other types of tabs that you can add. So the tabs that we're talking about are things that are happening here at the top. Now, any tab that you add is automatically added for everyone in the group, which means that you can control the kind of access that people have in the group quite well in this way. So click on the plus, for example, and it opens up the options of the different tabs that you can add. So the first tab that we want to add, once it shows, come now. Right, there we go. So you can actually see there's a ton of different things that you can do, like an incredible amount of different things that are available as tabs, and you can really play around with these different things. I haven't played around with all that many of them. I've tried out one or two of them. Some of them work wonderfully well, and some of them, unfortunately, just don't quite hit the mark the way that you want them to. But some of the simple ones that really work well is if you just go and you, for example, with Excel, your PDFs, your PowerPoints, these things just work well because it is an office file integrates well into Teams. It's as simple as that. So if I want to add an Excel file, now have a look at what's quite useful. If we've got, for example, our staff list, and the staff list is the first thing we want people to complete. If I've added a file to my files tab already, because we have to add it to the files tab. Now it's just trying to find it. Unfortunately, it's being a little bit slow. And it is really taking its time now. Right, so there we go. The staff contact details. Now remember, I created that Excel sheet in my files. So now, because I'm worried that people aren't going to be able to find it in files, I'm just going to add it as a tab at the top. So when I add it as a tab, every tab that you add, you've got the option that it automatically posts in the channel about that tab. So there's going to be a message about that. So you'll see now I've actually got posts, files, PLC notebook, and Excel. And unfortunately, there are some of these that you can't remove. For example, this PLC notebook is one that is there by default based on the type of we created. So here I've got the Excel one, and I'm just going to rename it to staff contact. And now I've got a tab here at the top that calls itself staff contact, and it's an Excel sheet. What that means is it's incredibly easy for your staff to find it, click on it, and update it, and find the information in it. And you'll see it opens up Excel, the online version of Excel. Now, of course, what you have to keep in mind, the online of these various files, of the various apps, online Excel, online Word, online PowerPoint, all of them, they don't have all the functionality that the desktop versions have, but they've pretty much got everything that is important, everything that you really need, except if you really want to delve into some of the more advanced features. But here we go. Here I've got immediately I've got my list. And remember, because it's a file shared in the general tab, it's accessible and editable by everyone in this team. So everyone can open this up and everyone can actually go and change it as they need to. I see it is struggling a little bit with the connection. I hope the audio is coming and the visuals are coming through fine on time, and that it's more of an issue with the Microsoft service. I know they were struggling a little bit earlier today with the servers, so I hope it's not the audio and the video that's also struggling on your side. But anyway, there I've got my staff contact. So if I were to update it, right, and you'll see there's added a new tab at the top of this channel. Here's the link. You can just click and it'll take you to the Excel sheet. So what actually works is something temporarily very important. So you post a staff contact, everyone needs to complete it. You're going to make it a tab at the top, so it's easy for them to get to. They're going to open it up, and all they can do from here is they can simply, once it's actually completed, if you remove it here, or you rename it, or you do whatever you need to do, just take note of the fact that you're not actually removing the file, you're just simply removing the tab. So let's just leave it there for now. But now what I also spoke about is we want to add something about the files. Let me just show you this as well. That is a little bit frustrating. And I haven't tried, I'm not 100% sure on the district domain how it, no, did not want to click there. Let's go back. So something that is a little bit frustrating about these files, any file that you select, so let's say, for example, this one, I've got the option, I can go there and I can, something that a lot of us are used to is sharing links. I can get a link. So if I know that the people that I want to share this with, they're actually in this group, it's actually easy to get a link like that, right? Just copy link and it'll give me a link. Now, I suggest when you want to share it with someone that's in the team and you know it's in the team, share it using this link that says Microsoft Teams. What that'll do is it'll actually open up Microsoft Teams and then open up the file inside of Teams. So you know that they're kind of getting the same experience that you are getting. If you want to share it externally, then use Sharepoint. Then you're going to share it with Sharepoint. So Teams is if it's sharing the file with someone that's in your team, Sharepoint, someone that's external. If for some reason you need to have a file. Now, just something that you have to keep in mind, Sharepoint with the WCG Schools one doesn't, from what I saw now, really give you the option to share links externally. Or from what I saw when you create the file in Teams, I'm speaking under correction. Maybe someone else has explored this and can tell me, but it works a little bit differently. But if you're sharing a file in SharePoint, I'll show you what you can also do. You can actually go to this and I go to open in SharePoint, and it's going to take you to a different site. It's going to take a while to load. So while that is Right, so while that is loading, let's go away there quickly. Right, so when you open in SharePoint, it looks a little bit different. It's kind of similar, but you'll see here when you want to share a file and you get the share option here, it still restricts you to sharing within your organization. So when you have this whole thing, people in the Western Cape government schools within can edit. I can't actually share it externally. I have to share it in the Western Cape government school. So that can sometimes be a little bit restrictive when you need to share files with various people. So for that reason, what people often do is they actually want to put files onto something like a Google Drive or a Dropbox where it's easier to share your files. So to do that is actually quite simple. We're going to add a tab. So let's go to our queries tab again. So in our queries tab, we actually have a Google folder that we're going to link to this. And we're going to go to add tab. And what we do here is we add a website, right? We add a website. And then as you're doing that, you get the link to the folder. So let me show you how we do that. If you are unsure, it's going to open up Drive over here quickly. So if I'm opening up Drive, you can in fact link Google Drive like that as well if you wanted to. So well, we're going to get to that in a minute. Before I'm getting ahead of myself now. So I'm just going to take this training folder. Right, I'm just going to take the training folder. Apologies for my internet connection. That's really not playing along nicely today. I'll right click on it and you can just get the link, right? So if you right click on the training folder, I've already done that somewhere else. So I'm not just going to add it now. So you add a website and now you can call it Google Drive. And I don't want to paste that one. Let's paste this one. Right, and we add a folder, the Google Drive folder. So once you've added the Google Drive folder, it usually allows you to connect. Maybe they've changed the protocol now. But if it does that, let me show you what you do now. Or let's first add a different type of thing here. It seems like it really is misbehaving. Everything seems to be misbehaving today. So the Google Drive folder, if it does this, so if you've added a tab, for example, Google Drive, and it doesn't actually want to open up in this way, these options here at the top allow you to view it in different ways. So if I'm using the expand tab, it actually shows the tab, a bigger version of the tab. So now it just shows a bigger version of it, doesn't want to allow the connection. Or we can say, go to website. I'm wondering, maybe I just copied the wrong. Right, let me just make sure. Maybe it is possible that I used the wrong folder. Right, so now we're just going to copy the link. See if we use the correct link. And we'll save that. And it still doesn't want to connect. Right, but in this way, you can actually add your Google Drive. If it does this, as you can see now, which obviously means that it's not working well, it essentially becomes a very quick link to that Google Drive folder. So all that you do at this point is you're going to use this link that says go to website. What that does is it opens a new tab here at the top with that exact folder, that link, and you'll see then it opens up the Google Drive folder. So then it becomes kind of like a shortcut, a very quick and easy way to get to the place where you want to go. Sometimes, and I know in the past, from my experience with these tabs, sometimes it works very well, sometimes I struggle a little bit, sometimes the view itself is too small. You actually want more space than the frame that is created here. One of my colleagues calls it the desktop real estate, where Teams takes up quite a lot of desktop real estate, and you don't want to view the whole thing in this small little block. But the same way that I created that Google Drive link, I can actually link to a number of different things. So just as an example, and let's see if this one loads, I'm going to add another website. This is the registration form that for the TPD. So the one that you registered registered for the session. Right, so we're going to add that. We'll post to the channel again. And remember, any tab that you add, you can post to the channel or you can not post to the channel, depending on how you want to do it. Let's post to the channel quickly. And let's see if this one decides to load. Right, so there we go. There's the attendance register, the one that you completed for today, and it's actually loading in Teams. So this is quite useful if you've got, for example, a Google form that you complete often. I know a lot of schools are using Google Forms when they need to capture their attendance, or when they need to capture their screening protocols and the processes that they go through. And this is quite a useful place to have it all centralized in one place. There we go. The registration TPD is over there. So when I open up Teams, just to show you why this is useful, when I sit in front of my computer and I need to go to my Teams, I'll just click on the team. Normally it's going to open up in general. It remembers where you were last. I have a look here, staff contact. If I needed to find it, it's over there is the tab. Queries, I've got my Google Drive. If I click on it and it doesn't want to open because it's now refusing this connection, then I know that I can just go to this link, and it's like a shortcut, takes me to the right place. I can go to registration TPD, and there it actually the Google Forms. Now, another thing that works very well, because we're trying to, in a way, create a streamlined process that people know how to get to different things quickly. Now, Teams is one of those things that people are opening up more often these days, especially once you've downloaded the desktop app, you've got it there. But we want to send emails to you on your WCG Schools email address. And while you've got Teams, you're not really sure always how to access that. So let me show you a very useful little trick that we have started using more and more on our side, and that is adding your mail to your team as well. So in your general tab, same story, we're going to add a tab, and we're going to use a website. We're going to call it Outlook. And now, in order to get the link, let's see how we get the link. The easiest to get, open up a new tab. We'll go to office. If you wanted to, you can always go through the waffle here at the top, but I'm just going to go. Right, that's a very relevant point that Yaroslav is making. I wonder if I shouldn't just try switching to a different connection, because it seems like we are having a lot of issues with this connection. It is really struggling a bit today. Just give me a minute or two and I'm going to switch to a different connection, and we'll see if it goes a little bit better on a different connection. Are other people also struggling with the sound? Okay. Just give me a second. I'm going to switch connections and see if I can get a little bit of a better one. All right, I'm on a different connection now. Can I just get a thumbs up if you can hear me on your side? And if it sounds a little bit better, maybe? Okay, let's try that again. It seems there's a lot of little gremlins that are trying to prevent us from learning about all these tools today. Right, okay, so let's see if this works a little bit better. So now we wanted to show you how you add Office to, or how you add your Outlook to Teams, because this really is, I think, one of the easiest ways for people to get to their email, to get to their emails effectively. Then they only have one thing to open up. They don't have to set up their, it is possible, Yaroslav. I've got a ton of things open here. They don't actually have to set up their Outlooks, etc., etc. They only need to get Teams logged in. So once I'm in office.com, you've got your various online apps. So there's your Outlook, your online Outlook. Click on that, and it'll take you to Outlook, to the online Outlook. Now, I don't know if you've used this before. I've gotten to the point where I use this exclusively because it just works in my mind very, very well, right? So I'm just going to take that. I'm going to copy that address that I've got here at the top. I want to copy it, and I'm going to paste it as a URL over here for Outlook. And I save this. So as you can see, what happens now, and it's works very well, is when I open my team, I click on Outlook, and there we go. There I've got Outlook open in front of me, and I can use it. Close that. Right, and I can use my email the way I would always use it. So it does, again, it kind of takes away, you've got this whole frame around it, which can be a little bit frustrating, especially when you want to do your emails, but it's a very good way of making sure that you can get to your emails quickly and easily. And here's the important part that you need to keep in mind. If you set this up for your team, if you set this up for your team, they're going to start off, they're going to have the posts, and this brings us to a communication aspect. Very important. When we are communicating in the channel, so here we've got our general conversations that are happening. We've got our files that we've got over here that we can share and collaborate with easily. When I click on Outlook, I set up this Outlook, but it's important to take note of that my emails, everyone who joins and opens the team, they're not opening my email address or my emails, they're opening their own emails. This literally just links them to their Outlook account. So it becomes a very, very effective way to group the different communication channels, all of it together. Because we really want to start using the WCG Schools email address as the contact point that we're sending things to you, that we're communicating with our teachers and communicating with our principals, etc. In this way, even if you haven't gone through the process of setting up Outlook or etc., there you go. You click on that link once and you are in, and you don't have to worry about it. Now we're going to try, because I have my suspicions that this might not work. but you can actually even add your Gmail. It's very possible it's going to prevent us. See what happens. As you play around with the different things, some sites allow you to add it, and let's see, they don't want to allow us. Gmail, Google and Microsoft are playing better together, but they still have there's still a couple of issues sometimes, right? But again, there's a go-to website and it'll open up your Gmail for you, right? Which I don't want to do now. But in the Outlook one especially becomes a very, very useful one. Let's just remove that tab. And the important thing that you need to remember with tabs, you can add tabs to any channel that you want to, but you can actually go and you can add tabs to any chat that you've got as well. So what that means is when I create a chat with people, so let's say we've got a number of people that are maybe at different schools, you're creating just a kind of a PLC. You don't have to create a team for the purposes of sharing files and communicating in this way. You can just simply start a chat. If you know the names of the people and they're all using their WCG schools account across multiple schools, you can just start entering names, and it'll create a little group. And in that group, you've actually got access to your chats or to your tabs, etc. So I'll just take this one as an example, files organization, one more. I can just add more tabs, any kind of tab that I want to. I can add to this automatically. And in that way, we can really customize the experience the experience of this whole thing. I think tabs personally are really such a useful way of kind of creating a specific experience for people when they join your team, because I can kind of control what becomes easily accessible to people in different ways. Now, something that people struggle with a lot, I've come to realize, is we email links constantly and then people lose those links. They don't know where to go anymore. We send out, and this applies from the district side and applies within a school. We send out these various files, we send out these different things, but people are not in the habit of bookmarking things. People are not in the habit of necessarily organizing digital content in a way that makes it easier for them. That's why it's incredibly important, especially for our ICT champions at schools, to really look at this way of setting up a team and adding these tabs and adding these things that really makes communication significantly easier and more streamlined, and kind of groups everything together in a way that really works very well in terms of being able to just make sure everyone is on the same page, whether it comes to file sharing, collaboration, but communication especially. And it really creates a kind of backlog of what's happening. Something that, let me quickly see if I can add this as an example. This is now for our focus schools or high schools that they're using a system called Scuba, which allows us to capture marks, etc., etc. So schools can use these channels, and that's often something that people struggle. Where do they go to find their different, or their Scuba, because it's a web-based thing. So I'm going to add this as a dummy example. Let's add Scuba. I just need to try and remember top of my head. I think that was the dummy school. So I'm just going to add that. Right. So what you see in front of you, this is a way that we often do things that works very well. I'm going to have this. What you see here is just a landing page. This is actually a Google Doc that I created, and then I use the publish online option, because what it does then is it creates a file or it creates something that looks like a site, a little landing page, and from there I can add multiple links. So this is an example. Let's just quickly expand the tab because that's what we're typically going to do. From here, I can go and I can click on grade 11, and it'll take me to the grade 11 mark sheets. It's not going to take me to the mark sheets internally. And please note, these are all dummy names, so you're not getting any information about a school. But here I can actually get to a certain tab, and I can organize my links. There's another one that I can get to, and I can quickly jump between links in that way. So this becomes an incredibly useful way of organizing and making sure people are channeled in the right direction, creating a landing page and adding that landing page as a tab. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do now quickly is I'm going to switch, and this is going to take a minute or two because the next stuff I want to show you are things that you have to do on the desktop app. So give me a second. I need to join the meeting using using this account so that I can share my other screen. So that's just going to take a minute or two to get set up. So that I can also give myself permission. Because what I want to show you quickly is kind of a more practical way of how we are doing it from the district side already, making our life a lot easier using these tabs in how we are creating that kind of experience that we all know that we're doing the same thing. All right, so let me just join this meeting quickly, and then right now I just need to quickly add myself as a presenter. Right. So can someone just quickly give me a thumbs up if they can see my Teams being shared and still hear my mic? Okay, I can see my screen is shared. Right. So I just want to give you a bit more of a kind of real life view of this. So please bear with my connection because my poor computer is now having to deal with multiple teams, sharing teams, etc. So it becomes a bit of a headache. So what you see in front of you here, these are just some of the teams that we are part of. So if I just go to the E team as an example, you'll see we've got lots of different channels over here, lots of conversations happening over there. I hope you can see because I know it's a little bit small, but here at the top, there's a whole bunch of different links as well. So we've got a link here called curriculum support. If I click on that, it takes me to this little landing page. This is just a Google Doc that has been published. And on this, there's a whole bunch of different links. So this is exactly what I was referring to with controlling kind of the flow of content information, because I've sent out all these links in the past, but people lose them. People are not sure where to go and where to find them. So what I create then is I create a single document with a list of links that I want to make sure people know how to get to. And to make sure they know where to find it, I add it as a tab in my team, and there I've got all of these different links that I can use. Now, none of these links will work for you because they all require certain kind of access. And over here, I've got a school visit report, because when we visit schools, we have to report on what we do. As you see here, what actually happens now is it requires a login. I'm happy that it shows this now. So I'm on the desktop app, and using the desktop app, it doesn't remember your Google account necessarily. So in this instance, this is a Google form that requires me to be logged in with a certain account in order to access it. But what's nice now is you're not going to have to do it all the time. You only log in once, right? So I need to just log into my account quickly. Right, so there I've logged into my account, and now I'm straight into the Google form that I can complete, which is a very, very useful and easy way to make sure people know where to find the content that they need to find. And here we've got an ICT champions. If you're in a school and you haven't updated your ICT champions yet, please make sure that you do that. But here, again, we're just using a Google sheet that just makes life easier for us. And here I can select the various schools, and it automatically loads now selected one that doesn't have an ICT champion yet. Apologies for that. So here it just loads a list of contact details for me. That makes my life a lot easier. Now, what I also want to show you on some of the other teams that we've got, just to give you a sense of what we can do with these things, because the way that you use tabs and the way that you can kind of manipulate it, as you can see, what we've done, and most of our tabs are Google-based things, we've kind of integrated a lot of what we do on Google. We've integrated it into what we're doing on Teams, to have one centralized platform that we are using. With the FET component, same kind of thing, just to show you an example of things that we do when we need to update certain information. I'm not going to go into these specifically, but like I showed you with the Excel tab, we do the same kind of thing just with the Google Sheets tab for various reasons, and kind of connections that we can set up between Sheets and other things. But it becomes an easier way, rather than me sending out an email asking everyone to just send me an email back, I do my communication on Teams, because then everyone kind of sees the responses that are happening, and there's a collaboration that starts happening. The communication doesn't flow only in two directions anymore, backwards and forwards, but it flows how should we describe it? But people are more informed of what's actually happening in the organization than they were in the past, which really helps a lot. But what I want to show you now, and I'm just going to leave this meeting quickly, because I want to show you some of the cool things some of the new things that have been added to Teams now, that really makes it quite a powerful presentation tool that wasn't there before. Right, I hope I haven't lost you now. Okay, so what I want to show you is, if we actually create a new meeting, I'm just going to have not do that. I don't want to do that. Right, I'm just going to jump into a meeting that we want to have. Oh, before we do that, let's show you how these things work. So yesterday we had this meeting Quizlet for content consolidation. I'll just demo it on that. If I have this meeting, if I set up a meeting options becomes a very important and very useful thing to be able to do. So if I join this meeting, right, I just need to change my screen sharing again. Right. So yeah, I've got my meeting that I've got set up. No one's in my meeting. If I'm in a meeting, meeting options becomes a very useful trick to be able to do. So to get to your meeting options, you've got these three dots that says more actions, and we click on meeting options, and it opens up a panel here on the side. Now this one's already kind of set up the way that that I like to set up most of the meetings that we have. And that is the most important thing for me really is this who can bypass the lobby everyone setting. Now, if you are in a closed environment, a closed organization, then it is useful to say people in my organization, trusted organizations and guests. It is useful to be able to do that. People in my organization, for example, and guests, those are the ones, only the people in my organization and only me, you can decide. But for most of the training that we do, we just want to make sure that it is open and accessible for everyone to join. If I don't do that, I find myself in the position where I have to click admit, and that really can become very frustrating, especially if you've got over 100 people in your sessions. I know there's a button that says admit all, but still, as they're joining, you need to admit more people and more people and more people. So that's the first little very useful trick. Then, generally speaking, I prefer to leave this announced when callers join or leave off, because we've got big meetings and we don't want everyone to be kind of for this message to constantly pop up. This one has joined, this one has left, this one has joined, this one has left. And then who can present? I'm sure many of us remember when we all started with MS Teams a year ago. Things were not nearly as smooth as they are now. People were sharing their own screens the whole time. People were unmuting themselves. A lot of us have gotten used to this concept of just don't unmute yourself, just don't share your screen. But what's great now is we can actually force that. So when we say who can present, you can have specific people presenting, and then you can actually say who are the participants. So in this instance, there were these two that presented the session yesterday that I can set beforehand are my two presenters. And just to make sure that you have that right, you need to invite them to the meeting specifically. Then you can set them as presenters beforehand. Otherwise, we just use the only me, and I switch the mic off and I switch the camera off. And this is kind of the meeting settings that we have, which often ensures for the smoothest kind of training session, because then we know we're not going to have people unmuting themselves. We're not going to have people sharing their screens. We don't have to admit people. They just go straight into the session, and then things work. But now I want to show you one of the parts that I'm most excited about, really, and that is when we share the content. Now, this has changed significantly over the past few months, but specifically with this last edition that we've got over here, the PowerPoint Live option. Right now, what's great about the PowerPoint Live, and those of you who joined the session in the beginning, you probably saw that, a little bit of that. And the reason why I had to switch to show you this is you have to use the desktop version in order to do this. It does not work in the web app. Now, in the past, I did not like using the PowerPoint presentations built into Teams, but now that they've added a little bit more functionality, it becomes an incredibly powerful way of presenting. Depending on what you want to do. In our instance with e-learning, we're not really going to use it very often because we tend to open up web applications and we tend to open up things like that. So we don't really use PowerPoints all that much in the way that we present. But if it's a content-specific things, your subjects that you need to do, your content that you need to do with your learners, whatever the case might be, then we want to use PowerPoints. And let me show you the real value that we've got now. So I'm just going to add the PowerPoint that we had open in the beginning. Right, we'll just replace that one. And no, Gilbert, we will never move all the way to Microsoft, because I showed you how we use Google in Microsoft and marry the two, really. So what's quite nice here is I've got the presenter view, which means I only have one slide now. But if I had lots of different slides, I actually have all of them open here at the bottom. So I know what's coming next. I've got my notes so I can see what I need to talk about. And I've actually got my chat here on the side. So I can see what people are saying in the chat. I can mute them. I don't have to worry about that. They can't present, but I've got my presentation in front of me. And what was a problem in the past is you actually weren't able to use a pointer and things like that. Now you can, right? So right? So here when I click on the pointer, the cursor will show on their end, right? I've actually got a laser pointer now that I can use to highlight certain things. And obviously, they're not going to see a small presentation. They're going to see this whole thing taking up the screen, right? So I use my laser pointer. I've got the option to write as well on my PowerPoint, and it'll appear on their end. I've got the option to use a highlighter, so I can just highlight certain bits, certain parts. And if I click and hold, the options appear. How thick do I want to make it? So we want to make a thick highlighter. We're going to use pink, and let's highlight that part of what we are saying. So can you see the kind of tools that you've got now when presenting really actually adds a lot to what you're doing. If you realize we don't want any of these things, we just erase it and take it all away. But this ability to write on your slide and highlight on your slide really extends the functionality a lot. But for me personally, the most exciting part of the whole thing is the fact that links that you add, if you actually add links in your presentation, they are now clickable links. So for example, whenever we have our welcome screen in the future, when we're doing presentations, where it says complete the attendance register, it'll always be a clickable link from now on, because we can do that. We can add links. You can add various links. So if we've got lots of different interactive elements in our presentation, we add them as different elements. We can actually add all those little links that we want people to jump out to, and we don't need to just paste it in the chat all the time, because they can click on that, it opens a new tab, and then they can do whatever they need to do. Whether that is a Google form, a Microsoft form, a Mentimeter, Answer Garden, Quizlet, Quizzes, Kahoot. There's lots of different things that we might want them to go to. We might want them to go and watch a video, because when we stream a video like this, it doesn't always work so well. So sometimes we tell them, click on the link and go watch the video on your end. And then they stream it on their side, and they're going to have a better user experience that way. So these are very powerful new presentation tools that I think you need. We just wanted to show you that you are made aware of it, and that you can kind of play around with what they can do. But with that said, that pretty much covers what we wanted to cover today. So just to kind of wrap up again, I'm just going to switch the presentation again back to the this team. So if you have a look here, just to kind of summarize what we were talking about, the last thing I wanted to point out, any meeting that you join has a chat here. Look, if we see the chat, it has a chat happening on the corner. So the little video camera there shows that it is an active meeting, which means I can click on join and I'll jump into that meeting immediately. Something that one of the participants asked about last time is, can we add the recording to the files tab? And yes, as we pointed out, you can add tabs to anything. So yeah, I've got the files tab is right there. It is actually available there. And there's the video that we made last time. So we'll add today's session. We're going to add to this one as well. And what I'll do here, if you somehow missed out on the attendance register, I'm going to actually add the attendance register once it allows me to do that. Right now it's just misbehaving, but you can add a tab. I'll do that a little bit later. Just add the attendance register, link to the attendance register there as well. So you can get a sense of, in that chat, you can actually access all those things. And remember, these chats remain active. So you can still ask questions and have conversations even when you are not in the meeting itself, provided you are using an Office account, which is again takes us back to that thing that we've been trying to promote. You have to use your WCG Schools account. It really adds a lot of value to what you can do. Something that Gilbert also pointed out, you can actually save all of those annotations as well. If you've made all of these annotations in a PowerPoint, you can save it. And what also works quite well is the ability to allow the participants to navigate through the slides at their own pace. All right. Thank you, everyone. As Gilbert has pointed out, there's a lot of things, so we will try and make shorter clips. Apologies for that. I'd also like to just apologize for a lot of the funny gremlins that we had creeping into this presentation. Sometimes these things misbehave in the most unexpected ways. But I still hope that you were able to get something from this presentation and really take the skills that you have, and please take it to your colleagues. Make sure that we enhance our overall ability to communicate and to collaborate, so that we can really move forward in our way, move towards a more future way of doing things and being more effective in what we do.